What's going on, y'all? Let's Be Real podcast, episode 21. And look, obviously wasn't able to get an episode out to y'all this week. Just holidays and everything. Everything's been crazy. So this week and probably next week, I'm gonna try to get two out, but with the holidays, it's gonna be a little tough. So just bear with me. But we got a great episode for y'all today. As always, I got my wine with me. This one is gonna be the Inverted Flamingo. Is a high altitude Malbec from Argentina. I actually really love Malbecs. Got my glass right here. But this wine, definitely on the cheaper end. Very easy to drink, balanced, very balanced across the board. Very fruity. Gonna get a lot of blackberry, dark fruits, some oak with it. But again, very just easy to drink and a very good wine if you're just gonna kind of kick back and watch some sports or a movie. Great as far as for that. But man, look. Obviously, with the only one episode this week, we're gonna try to jam everything in as much as we can. Probably gonna go about, I want to say, 60 to 90 minutes, so a little bit longer than usual, but we're gonna get there. And so, look, as always, we're gonna start off with our NFL recap. We're gonna talk about some of the bigger headlines from this last week, talk about some NBA at the end, and then we're going to wrap it up with the top five and the watch of the week. But like I said, man, we're going to start off with our week 15 recap. Some of these, man, it's not even really about the score. Actually, most of them you're going to see is probably not about the score. It's more so just about what it means. And we're going to start off with one really very inconsequential game as far as the two teams, but we're starting with the Jets and the Jags, man. So obviously, Jets come out with a win, and we're going to stick on the Jets mostly with this one just because, well, one, what this win means for the Jets. And look, I personally do not have any Jet fans or any friends who are Jet fans, which really saddens me because, my goodness, if there was ever a team where I just want a friend that we can just absolutely blast in the group chat all the time for rooting for this team, that would make my day. And so, in arguably the worst win you could ever have, along with any other game they got coming up, the Jets win. And so, with the big part of this is this actually good that the Jets get a win, and good that Rodgers has been playing somewhat decently well over the last 2 weeks. And probably, like I said, the worst thing that could happen for you if you're rooting for the Jets. One, I mean, obviously, with the Jets, every win now moves you further away from a higher draft pick, right? Arguably. And so, really, if you're a Jets fan, you're rooting for losses at this point, just because get us a higher draft pick, get us a more talented player, and possibly get a quarterback that looks like Rodgers' replacement. But that's the other part is with Rodgers looking kind of good, and it's just the most Aaron Rodgers kind of thing to do, right? When the season's basically over, not basically, when the season's over, no expectations. You go out and you have your best couple games, and now if you can almost sell the Jets ownership, the Jets GM, whoever they bring in, is look, Rodgers just needed a year to back into football after the Achilles to really get comfortable. And look at him these last few weeks. We're gonna get a good Aaron Rodgers next year. And let's be honest, man, it's not what you're gonna get. You're gonna get the Aaron Rodgers, possibly a worse one than you've seen all year this year. And so, two totally bad things that I think are going to come out of this is obviously the Jets. I think they might get another win or two and, might bump their draft pick down. Two, I don't know if they're going to draft, and granted, it's not a great quarterback draft, but I don't know if they'll draft a quarterback with a top pick because they're going to think, oh, we're win now mode. Let's get some talent with that top pick and let's go win with Rodgers. And so you're going to keep Rodgers. You're going to bring him back. Granted, you still got him under contract. And I know, you got the $50 million dead cap if you cut him. But, the way you can work that, you can split it over 2 years. To me, the smart thing to do if you're the Jets is sit Aaron Rodgers. Actually, maybe don't sit him. Who knows? I would sit him and hope, you get some losses with your backup QB in there. Next, I would cut Aaron Rodgers, split that cap over the next 2 years, and then go into just rebuild mode. However, the Jets have shown this week that they are not smart when it comes to running this franchise. And so with that, let's talk about the Woody Johnson and Garrett Wilson stuff that came out this week. So the reports came out this week that Woody Johnson is heavily involved in the process of who they bring on as far as players and is heavily influenced by his teenage sons and public perception. So there's a couple different, I guess, examples of this, but the one that's come out that's just absolutely ridiculous is apparently the Jets had a trade in place to get Jerry Jeudy, and Woody Johnson ended up vetoing that trade because his sons didn't like it because of Jerry Jeudy's Madden rating. And so let's really just think about the ridiculousness of that statement. You decided to veto a trade that your general manager had set up for a very good wide receiver, not a top 5, not top 10, but, top 15, top 20 wide receiver in the league, which, they went out and got wide receivers. So clearly that was a point that that's a position they were looking to improve on. And as the owner, you veto your GM because your sons tell you that his Madden rating isn't good. Mind you, his sons are like 18 and like 15 or something like that. So, again, where else would you ever see anybody running a business or anything where you let your teenage sons have this major say in what kind of personnel or anything you would bring on or anything like that? It just doesn't happen because those companies would never exist because they would go under because it's just a terrible way to manage anything. And so you have that aspect of it, right? So veto the Jerry Jeudy trade because of Madden ratings. The next one comes out in one of the trades they had made. Woody Johnson decided to give up, instead of the last pick they had, a better pick. So I was like I think it was a round earlier than their last pick, because he wanted to hold on to the hopes that he could draft Mr. Irrelevant and it would turn into like a Brock Purdy kind of player. So again, just totally doesn't make any sense. Like, lost for words. Because at the end of the day, if you see somebody that you are like, oh, this could be the guy and we're going to get him as a steal, he's going to be available the round before if you really want him. So just to hold out hope that we want to have Mr. Irrelevant and the last pick of the draft because we might be able to draft this gem that no one else sees is, again, it's just complete and utter just idiocy from Jets ownership. And then lastly, what came out was that Woody Johnson would allow his kids what they read online and the public perception of possible moves the Jets could make to determine whether they would make those moves. So look, Woody Johnson's kids reading all the forums, reading, whatever on Google, reading all the news articles, letting their father know, like, oh, this is what they think about this. This is what the news outlets think about this. And Woody Johnson going, oh, okay, then we need to either stay clear of it if they're against it, or we need to do it if they're for it. Again, that's why you pay a GM. And that's going to bring me to the next point is, obviously, well, one, let me go ahead. I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers a half apology right here, because with the way all this sounds and from what's come out from these different articles, Aaron Rodgers was not involved in the firing of Robert Saleh, wasn't involved in the firing of the GM, was actually actively involved in trying to recruit an offensive coordinator to replace Nat Hackett. So all those things, that I and most of us looked as far as, oh, we're going to put this on Rodgers. Apparently Rodgers, again, half apology, because now it's not confirmed whether he did or not. But now it's more seeming like, no, Rodgers had nothing to do with that. It is all Woody Johnson. Which, again, so little kind of point there. But what it brings me to is, you now have a GM opening and a head coach opening. And I don't know of any head coach or GM that would want that job. If you have any hopes of being successful as a GM or a head coach, you don't want that job. Which to me makes it seem like you're going to have to go find somebody who's just looking for a shot. Like Woody Johnson, has to come to, I'm going to, obviously this is a huge stretch, but you got to come to somebody like me or somebody like one of these TV personalities who just wants to be a GM to fill that role now. Because what former GM, current GM is going to want to leave their situation or go into a situation, if they're a former GM, where that's what you're dealing with internally. And same thing with the head coach. What head coach is going to want to have to deal with, if you want a player, if you want to draft a player, if you want to trade for a player, and the GM's on board, it getting vetoed because the owner's kids look at the Madden rating or look at what, the New York Times says about it. And so to me, that just, again, it totally hamstrings you and cripples you when you're now going to be looking for a GM or a head coach. And so I can't see them getting anybody worth anything to go there, which is even crazier in the fact of, Bill Belichick tried reaching out to him and they didn't want Belichick, which to me, I'm like, with all this coming out, you take whatever you can get, and Bill Belichick, you can do a lot worse. But couple that with the fact that another story came out where when Zach Wilson was the starter, Woody Johnson told him, he sucked basically in front of the whole locker room. And then the PR team came out and was like, well, Woody apologized for that. And it's like, well, that shouldn't be a thing anyways. So again, just nothing would make me happier than if I had a friend who was a Jets fan that I could just unload on because all this came out. And if you have a Jets fan, God, please make fun of him. But again, as somebody whose team with the Eagles is dealing with just kind of ridiculousness inside the locker room with the head coach, I would gladly take the Eagles' worst situation over the last 10 years than the Jets situation right now. It might be the most embarrassing situation that a team has ever been in. And it leads to the next point as far as, look, Garrett Wilson now on some kind of podcast or show came out and was like, when asked if he wanted to return to the Jets, kind of basically was like, not really. Yeah, it'd be cool if they want me back. But now that's your best young talent that you have, maybe aside from Sauce Gardner. Definitely the best talent you have offensively with Breece Hall. I'm not big with running backs, but definitely your biggest and brightest asset on the offensive end. And now he's talking about not wanting to come back. Now, does that mean he forces a trade or anything? Probably not. But it has got the interest around it. And so now teams are going to be calling on him. He's still got 2 years left on his deal. He's going to be eligible for the rookie extension. And, the talks are they're trying to decide between him and Breece. again, man, it's just total incompetence from the Jets, and nothing would make me happier than them losing Garrett Wilson at this point. Get him somewhere where he can go and, thrive in a better environment. And so, yeah, just again, if you have a friend who is a Jets fan, gosh, try to pull them out of that mess, or if they don't want to leave that team, make fun of them for it. And so next, man, we're going to move over to Bucks and Chargers. So Bucks with a big time win against the Chargers, man, 40-17. And look, Baker and the Bucks, man, just cruising right now. Looking like they're going to cruise into the playoffs. They got 3 very winnable games coming up against I know they got Carolina, the Cowboys, and the Saints. So 2 division games, but against teams that are in the division that should be easy wins, and then the Cowboys, who again we kind of know their situation. But the biggest thing with this is, man, the Bucks are with, obviously they're not going to be at full strength with Godwin out, but with Mike Evans and the other weapons they have on offense, Bucky Irving is kind of solidified himself now as a back that you can kind of rely on. And man, they're dangerous. They are dangerous, and I would view them as probably not on the level of the Eagles, which, I mean, is weird because I feel like the Bucks could go in and romp the Eagles again. But I don't put them on the level of contender as far as maybe the Eagles. But with the Lions and their injuries, with the Vikings and, Sam Darnold, how he could possibly just have a bad game, and especially in the playoffs where we haven't seen him, I think the Bucks are just as much of a contender as really anybody outside the Eagles. I would put them right there with, the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers at this point. I'd probably put them above the Packers and right there with the Lions and the Vikings. Which, again, man, like with the success they've had against the Eagles as well, again, man, Baker playing like that, I could see them possibly being a team that we maybe see sneak into a Super Bowl again. It's the NFC is just really weird, especially with the Lions now dealing with all those injuries. It's just the Bucks are going to be on that list for me. And so, again, we'll see what they can do with it. But from the other end, man, the Chargers, and we're going to talk about them because that's why I'm not going to spend too much time here with them, because they also just played last night. And so we're going to talk about their bounce back win. But this is what scares me as far as the Chargers, is that they can have this game where the offense just looks terrible. Justin Herbert looks bad. And, and it's not even just that he looks bad. It's just the decision making is bad as far as, on 4th downs, throwing, on 4th and 8, throwing to somebody for 5 yards. And it's just mistakes that you can't make, especially if you're going to play a good team in the playoffs. And so that's what scares me as far as the Chargers and the playoffs and how far they can go, is they can have a game where they score 17 points and Justin Herbert makes terrible decisions. And so, again, that's just the bad side. We're obviously going to talk about the good here in a minute, but we're first going to move into Vikings and Bears. And so, look, man, Vikings, look, I told you, look, Sam Darnold, never know what you're going to get from him. Obviously, he's a liability, possibly, if you get into the playoffs, because we obviously haven't seen him there, and he's got that risk factor to him, right? And look, I was on TikTok throughout the week on one of my posts talking about whether the Vikings should pay Sam Darnold or not, and I think they should. But again, man, it's just he's putting up big numbers, putting up great numbers, looks great most of the time, but he's got that dud factor. And again, if I'm the Vikings, I would pay him. But, I don't know if they're going to be able to with their cap situation and how much he's going to want. But, yeah, we'll have to kind of just see where that goes. And, I think it really just what determines him getting paid is how far to go in the playoffs. I think if he gets to, the conference championship, I can't see a world where you don't try and keep him or try to make the money work. But also, we could be talking about a first round exit for him because he just has a bad game. And at that point, it's like, yeah, I'd probably guess that he's gone. And a team like Indianapolis throws a bag at him and he moves over there because they're a team who seems like they're a quarterback away when Jonathan Taylor's not dropping the ball before he runs into the end zone. And so, for the Vikings, again, they're kind of in that weird kind of just clump of NFC teams as far as where they rank in like the contender status. I think, again, the Eagles have kind of separated themselves in the NFC, but the Vikings, again, I could see them going as far as the Super Bowl. I could also see them losing in the first round. I think it's more likely they go further just because Brian Flores and that defense are great very good. And the only team that's got a better defense than them in the NFC at this point is probably the Eagles. And so, again, I think just defensively and with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach, I see it far more likely that they make a deep playoff run than, an early exit. But you never know, man. All it takes is one Sam Darnold 4-interception game and that they just can't overcome. And from the other side, man, look, the Bears, it's what it is. Like we've said for the last, however many weeks, it's all about right now just seeing the growth from Caleb. And this is a game where, the last few weeks he's had some good ones where we, trending up. This is a week where I didn't see what I would want to see from Caleb. And, to me and you can tell when the game is out of hand, Caleb, he makes great plays. He had a couple against, the Vikings there when the game was basically over where, you really see kind of the talent show itself, which is obviously a good sign. But, and I'd almost rather see him making just those kind of throws throughout the whole game as opposed to just when it's like, well, we got to drop back and throw now and basically just let's see if we can make something happen. But the biggest thing for me that I didn't like was, look, he's a young player. First time he's really probably been in a situation like this. I think he said, he's never lost 8 straight before. But the body language from him, not great. And I know, he took a couple shots and, probably feeling that a little bit, but just the body language on the sideline, it needs to be better. And again, he's a young player. I'm sure, it's a learning experience for him. But again, if it's not always going to go your way every week, and that's what, again, where if you're not going to have a great week as far as showing me things on the field that look great, have it on the sideline. And so, again, we'll see as he grows. I'm sure, he'll get better with that because we see the best quarterbacks in the league at some point with bad body language. But again, it's one of those points where I saw it and it was like, come on, man. And so hopefully we get that shored up. And look, it's going to be these last couple weeks. He hasn't thrown a pick in the last 8 games during the whole loss streak. I kind of just hope they just open it up, let it rip. And, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but he's got a game this week where that might be the game plan. So we'll see what happens with that. Next, man, look, we're going to move over to my team. We got the Eagles and the Steelers. Obviously, Eagles win. Put a little bit of that A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts beef to rest. I think that with that game, and I talked about it in the last podcast, that game was almost tailor-made for them to have that kind of division in the locker room and what it was around. Like the Steelers were the perfect game to have right after that because obviously their defense, incredible run defense. I think it might be first in the league still, but definitely top 2 or 3 at the worst. And So you knew it was going to be tough to run the ball. And the pass defense, it's a little shakier. And so obviously we saw AJ has a monster game. Jalen has a good game. And so my thing now with it is, do we see this continue? Because now, do we have to continue to throw the ball more to keep AJ happy? Or, they're facing the Commanders. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But the Commanders, that this game plan should be run the ball heavy. And look, I've been on it all year saying that the best way for the Eagles to win is to hand the ball off to Saquon and run through that. So, we'll see if they can stick to the running game plan, or now that they've had this game in the passing game and AJ is like, well, look what happens. We beat one of the top teams. Does this become kind of a thing where they have to kind of keep him happy? And so, again, I think obviously great win. They threw Jalen had the touchdown to AJ. They had the celebration together. So everything is, kumbaya right now. But again, it's not as though, and I know Jalen, and look, I love Jalen. I've liked him since college. But look, he came out and, in his post game, talking about, oh, is that what you guys, that's what you guys wanted to see? And it's like, look, man, no one knew anything was going on in the locker room until y'all brought it up. This was totally internal. Like AJ Brown said, you guys need to pass the ball better. 2 reporters. And then Brandon Graham came out and said y'all wasn't boys no more. And so, look, as much like you can turn it into and try to in the locker room say, oh yeah, look, the media's against us, everything. But look, and most of the time there it is. Most of the time it's the media making something out of nothing. This was a total internal fire that y'all started. And so again, we'll see if it kind of simmers down now and we can get back to running the ball, or we just again we'll kind of just have to see how that goes. But again, it's weird because the Eagles have been so dominant, but I still just I get flashbacks to last year where everything kind of just melted down. And so that's just, again, something to keep our eyes on. And then lastly, for the last week's games, man, we got Bills and Lions. And so, man, shootout. What a great game. Bills obviously beat the Lions 48-42. And we're going to start with the Lions on this one. And so, look, again, man, going back to it, the Lions, man, obviously it's one of the unfortunate parts of sports is that there's injuries and that they unfortunately sometimes pile up for one team. And that's just what it is with the Lions right now, man. And you can see, as much as you want to say, oh, next man up mentality, and we're all going to grind, like there's a reason why guys are starters and guys are second, third stringers, because of eventually talent wins out, and you can only just grind your way and play we're going to give so much more heart. You can only do so much of that before talent becomes a factor. And unfortunately, like, talent is going to become a factor for the Lions, in my opinion. So to me, it's going to be hard for me to see them really being able to win deep in the playoffs. I think now my guess is they lose the division, which means they're going to be probably the 5 seed and on the road through the playoffs. And look, it's just hard to win out in the playoffs on the road the full way. And especially when you're dealing with so many injuries and just cluster injuries on your defense. Montgomery's probably going to be out for the rest of the year, it looks like. So you're losing one of your big backs. And so, again, man, it's unfortunate to see because, I mean, they looked just utterly dominant for such a big stretch of the year, even after losing Hutchinson, which I thought was going to be kind of the cause of the downfall. But it's tough to see, and it's just one of the unfortunate parts of sports. But that leads me to I watched it all week. People killing Dan Campbell for the onside kick with 12 minutes left in a 10-point game. And all those same people were the ones that were giving him praise for going for all these fourth downs when it wasn't the right decision. The handoff that Goff almost fell on, to ice the game. The same people praising him for that are killing him for this onside kick. And it's like I said then, man, if that's what you're going to do, you can't play the result. You can't like bad decisions when they go well and not like bad decisions when they don't go well. And to me, it's, and we talked about it last week, but it's just a total just shot at their defense, which, look, I get it. Your defense is banged up, but they had forced a punt in the last 3 possessions. They had held them to a field goal in their last possession. And to me, it's just, right now, onside kicks have a 7% chance of working. And you can't do like the trick onside kick anymore. Like, you have to declare it. Like, so what you're telling me and what you're telling your defense, what you're telling your team, and as much as you want to say, oh, next man up, we're going to grind our way through, you're telling everybody that we believe our defense has less than a 7% chance to stop them. That's what you're telling everybody. And again, if I'm on the defense, look, that's a shot at us. And to me, it's just, again, it's a terrible decision. And I know, look, he talked about, well, yeah, I thought we could get it. That's why I did it. I'm like, well, everybody thinks they can get the onside. Everybody's hoping they can get it. Like, so again, it goes back to this whole thing. Like, look, if you like Dan Campbell, you got to like all of Dan Campbell. Like, you can't like when Dan Campbell, his stuff works and when it doesn't. And so to me, again, part of the reason why I think the Lions can't can't go far in the playoffs is because of this. Dan Campbell doesn't believe in his defense. I mean, why should I? And so, and again, in a 10-point game with a whole quarter to go, it just, to me, it doesn't make sense. And I think at that point, it's just, you're just kind of shooting your last bullet. And so, again, that's why I just think when I'm watching the Lions play, when I'm watching this happen, to me, it's going to be tough for them to go far with a defense that's like that. On the other side, though, man, look, the Bills and Josh Allen, man, they're putting up points. They're putting up points. And look, Josh Allen's looking great. The Bills' offense is looking great. The defense hasn't looked too good over the last couple weeks. And to me, man, it's the Bills have a defense where if you're an all right offensive team, the Bills defense can look really good against you. If you're a really good defense or offensive team, the Bills are going to have a bad day defensively. And we've seen that with the Rams, who were able to expose them. We saw with the Lions, who were able to expose them. And so, while, look, the Bills, they're playing great, the kind of how they're playing almost reminds me of kind of the Ravens from earlier in the year, where everybody's hopping on this, Josh Allen and the Bills train, forgetting that they just lost to a Rams team that, is good, but not great. And, have been giving up over 30 regularly to good offenses. And so, it's just, again, to me, it's kind of like the Ravens were earlier. And look, I was one of the ones on the Ravens. I can't say I wasn't, where I was like, look, they're probably the most dangerous team. And I would hate to see them on a week-to-week basis because you never know what you're going to get. But that's how the Bills are. And to me, it's one of the reasons that has deterred me from the Ravens is now kind of looking at deterring me from the Bills is, yeah, I know their offense can be great, but I also know that their defense can give up, over 40, and which means that offense has to be incredible. And, if they're playing a team that maybe doesn't have 40 injuries on the defense, maybe they can't hang up 48. And so To me, look, the Bills, again, Josh Allen's been great. The Bills' offense has been great. But I think everybody kind of needs to pump the brakes on the Bills and how dangerous they are, because I think they're one of those teams that are going to fool a lot of people. And look, it already has. People are already saying they're the best team in the NFL, and I just don't see that. And so with that, man, look, obviously we talked about Josh Allen. Another thing that's been big is the Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the league. To me, utterly ridiculous. Look, it to me, this goes back to now, is Josh Allen having a better year? Absolutely. And people are going to bring it to, oh, well, all the things Josh Allen can do, like, oh, he can take off and run. Now, granted, Patrick Mahomes is not the runner Josh Allen is. I won't pretend he is. But I see Patrick Mahomes make, and we all do, we all see Patrick Mahomes make those runs where it's like down the sideline, up the middle, every time he needs it. And it's every time it's in a big situation, he can do that. And as far as the arm talent, look, Josh has a great arm, but talent wise, as far as just down the board, as far as arm talent, I'm giving it to Mahomes. Yeah, Josh Allen has a cannon. Mahomes has a cannon as well, and I trust his arm far more than I trust Josh Allen's. And then, again, like people are, look, Josh Allen is having a much better year. Again, I take nothing away. He's got a lot more, people are going to point to the touchdowns and everything. And it's, as somebody who has James Cook on my fantasy team, again, it's like the Jalen Hurts thing. I'm giving you half credit on your rushing touchdowns that are inside the 5 or inside the 2, because yeah, that's where a good bit of them are. And to me, this all is, look, we've always seen it, right? Jordan, always the best player in the league. Other guys won other guys won MVPs. LeBron, best guy in the league. Other guys won MVPs. Patrick Mahomes, best guy in the league. Everybody or somebody else wins MVPs. And so to me, and look, the closest thing I can say to this is I'm going to compare it to LeBron, right? Where when LeBron was at his peak powers, but they had just started to kind of decline, and I don't think we're at a decline with Patrick, but obviously he's had a down year, a couple down years, and but we saw that partial decline, and it was always like looking for the next guy. It's like, oh, Steph is the best player in the league. Oh, Kevin Durant's the best player in the league now, and then we would get to the playoffs, and LeBron would remind everybody, he's like, no, I'm still the best player in the league, and his teams would kind of be all right during the regular season, 3-4 seed. And then they'd get to the playoffs and roll. And it's like, oh, shoot, LeBron is the best player in the league still. It's to me, that's what we're seeing with Patrick Mahomes is like, we all went through this stretch, right? With his first few years where it's like, oh my gosh, Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the league, like might be the best quarterback talent we've ever seen. And now we're kind of, we see a down year last year and a down year this year, even though like he's been better recently. But we see these down, like this little kind of down stretch. And look, it happened last year, right? We saw the down stretch and it was, oh my gosh, what's wrong with the Chiefs? They're going to lose. Who's going to win? And then they go through the playoffs, they win, and everybody goes, okay, yep, no, Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the league. Look what he does. When it comes time to win, he does it, blah, 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 blah. And look, last year it was Lamar. This year it's going to be Josh Allen, and it's kind of the same story. And so I feel like everybody is setting themselves up for the same story, right? Of it might be Josh Allen, and then granted, it might be. Look, if Josh Allen goes and wins a championship, wins the Super Bowl, it can be a debate, but also have a chance for a lot of people to look dumb on the same exact thing again, where what if they match up again and Patrick beats him, plays better than him, and they roll and win a Super Bowl, everyone's going to, oh my gosh, I don't know why we doubted them. And to me, it's, there's been a lot of kind of revisionist history around the Chiefs, right? I was listening to, who was it? I was listening to the Herd, and it's not a shot, but I heard Jason McIntyre when they were talking about the Chiefs. Because I think Colin had said something about, like, well, the Chiefs last year won the Super Bowl. And Jason McIntyre came out and said, well, the Chiefs last year were just so much better of a team. And again, maybe he just forgot, and it's not a shot at J-Mac, but the revisionist history that's going on with that is insane. Because in no way, the Chiefs' defense may have been better last year. It was better, but it wasn't by a big margin. But let's really think about what that Chiefs team was doing last year. We had legitimate questions if it was the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. Most drops. Left tackle was still a problem. No wide receiver group, and Kelsey looked old then and last year as well. So again, this year's team so much better with DeAndre Hopkins, with Hollywood Brown coming back. Like, this year's team is positioned so much better and has a better record. Looks like they're going to get the bye. So again, with this revisionist history with the Chiefs, it's kind of weird that we're doing this. And all the Chiefs have done this year is win. And again, I just think we're going to set ourselves up for everybody who's saying, oh, Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the league. When it comes playoff time, I think we're going to see again who the best quarterback in the league is. And lastly, man, look, we're going to finish up the recap with the Chargers and the Broncos. Last night's game, Thursday Night Football. Chargers beat the Broncos. And look, like I said, man, Herbert, we talked about his bad performance. This one, man, hey, great job. Herbert, that's the kind of performance in a game that you guys had to win that people have been waiting for Justin Herbert to have, right? He's shown he's got the talent, but it's about, showing that talent and, having those big moments in games that you need to win. Now, obviously, this puts them in a great position for the playoffs. Looks like they'll probably get in now instead of the Broncos. And so now we got to see a playoff performance from you. Like, you got to go win a playoff game at least. But this was the kind of performance that, they envisioned when, and a lot of people envision when they're talking about Herbert and where he ranks as far as a quarterback. And so with that, like I said, I think the Chargers probably now make the playoffs. And look, they beat the Broncos in every phase, from offense with Herbert, and to defense, to special teams, to coaching. Like, the Chargers dominated the Broncos in every way. And to me, look, and I'm a fan of Sean Payton as far as an offensive coach, but to me, the Chargers, I'm hoping they make the playoffs, and to me, they're the more dangerous team if they make the playoffs, right? Now, obviously, the Broncos can still beat them out, but looks like the Chargers should make it, and that's who I would want to make it. And I just think if what we saw last night, he can replicate, if he can do that in the playoffs, I don't think Bo Nix has that in his game. And so I would say the Chargers more set up for success as far as the playoffs go, and definitely more dangerous. And I could see them winning a playoff game far before I could see the Broncos. And so, look, we're going to take that. We're going to move into this week's games, man. And so we're going to start off with, obviously, we usually just try to go through the big games. And we're going to start with one of, huge rivalry game, division game, and huge for the standings as well, Steelers-Ravens. And so, obviously, Steelers are still going to be without George Pickens. That hurts them. We saw how much that offense can struggle now without that kind of deep threat and deep shot part of their game, which, again, and I've been saying this for weeks now, that offense is bad outside of the couple shots they hit each game, but on a play-to-play basis, they are not a good offense. And so, we'll see if they can possibly get that going against a Ravens team who, look, their defense has looked better, but still not a great defense. And look, on the other end, Lamar, look, we saw it earlier this year, he lost. And we've seen, I think he's 1-6 over the last 7 games against against the Steelers. So obviously they need to go in. He needs to turn those struggles against the Steelers around. Obviously that Steelers defense is still incredible. And my thoughts with it is, look, just like the Eagles, I've said the Ravens' best way to win is handing the ball off to Derrick Henry. I almost think this is just like the Eagles. This is a game where that game plan should be, look, we got to let Lamar go to work. And look, if you're Lamar, this is a chance where it's like you got to go out and you got to show that you can beat this team. Because I don't look because me personally, if the Ravens go out and say Derrick Henry has a monster game, right? To me, if Lamar only throws, 150 yards and, he's 12 for 18, whatever, that I don't feel better about the Ravens just because they beat the Steelers. I don't feel better about the Ravens moving in the playoffs. Now, I need to see Lamar go out against a great defense whose pass defense is a little bit lacking, but in a big game, obviously, look, division rival, playoff implications as far as seeding is on the line. I need to see you go out and deal because that's going to be the best shot to beat them. We just saw the Eagles do that. The best way to beat the Steelers team is through the air. And so that's what I need to see him do. That's what I need to see that offense do, especially if I'm going to take them seriously as a playoff contender. So, again, we'll see if they can do that. But I think if you're the Ravens, that game plan needs to be – and look, like I said, I'm usually a big proponent of them handing the ball off, playing off that run game because I think, that's the best way they win. I think this specific game, Lamar needs to show that he can go out and win this game. And so, look, another quarterback that has to go out and win a game, man. The Bengals and Browns, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, playoff hopes still alive. And so, look, they got to go out and win. Obviously, the Browns going to start DTR, which to me, mistake. But, at this point, it's the Browns, man. If you start Jameis, you might win, you might lose. It's going to be fun either way. So I always like seeing Jameis out there. I think DTR, we already know kind of what he is. Not a starter in this league. But, again, from the Bengals' point of view, man, look, they have to, at this point, they have to win out. And if they can, I think it's the Colts and somebody else have to lose. But they have the Bengals have a legitimate path to the playoffs. And look, again, if as a fan of the NFL, that's who I want to see in the playoffs. If I could get the Bengals in the playoffs at that last seed, that last wild card, and set up for possibly a Bills or Chiefs Bengals game in round 1, man, talk about a great first round. And so, look, obviously the Bengals should win this game. Obviously, that Browns defense is really good still. But I just don't think the Browns are going to have the firepower offensively, especially with DTR back there, to beat the Bengals. And so, to me, I think the Bengals win this one. And look, like I said, I'm rooting for them. I hope they get in. So, and look, moving to the next team, we just mentioned them, but the Chiefs and Texans. And so, obviously, Mahomes, little banged up in last game, has that high ankle sprain. Looks like he's trending towards playing. And to me, again, I've been saying it for a while with this 3 games in 10 days. I would play him this game, sit him the Steelers game on Christmas, and then play against the Broncos. I think the Broncos is the other team that has to lose. They can't win out for the Bengals to get in. Anyway, sorry. But that's kind of been my plan with it. I think that's probably the best way to do it. But if he's in any jeopardy at all, and he's not going to be 100%, but if he can't be at least good enough to escape, then I think you have to rest him this game. And look, you got Carson Wentz back there, and the Texans, this year have not been kind of what we thought they were. So I think even with Carson Wentz, that's a winnable game. Going back to the point of, the Chiefs team this year probably being better than last year, because I think last year if Mahomes didn't play, no one would pick them to win a game against a playoff team. But anyways, so I think it's a winnable game, and I think if that's the case, you know, again, it's tough because with the Bills winning, the Chiefs kind of have to keep winning right now. And if they win this game, it almost locks up for sure that 1 seed, as long even if the Bills win. So to me, I think if Mahomes plays, obviously I think they win, and then I think you do rest them against the Steelers on Christmas, who, we'll see what their situation looks like. But and then if you have to go in and beat the Broncos to keep the 1 seed, that's what you do. And you play your guys there, because again, I don't want them taking 2 weeks straight off anyways. I'd rather kind of stagger their rest. So, but again, that biggest thing, and look, the Texans, they had one of their D tackles come out and say that they're coming after him. That pass rush is for real. And which is, again, is why I say if Mahomes can't escape, then I think you can't play him. But I think the Chiefs have a legitimate chance to win this game regardless of who's at quarterback. So that's why with that pass rush, I think you got to err on the side of, if he's not 85% and able to get out that pocket, you can't play him. And then look, lastly, man, we're going to go last big game of the week, Eagles Commanders. And so look, where I said last week against the Steelers, the game plan should have been throw the ball because that Steelers, run defense is so good. It's the exact opposite here. I think that Commanders pass defense is actually solid. Their DB, that they traded for, can't remember his name right now, but he's supposed to be back this game. That solid DB. And so I think this needs to be a game where we've seen the Commanders running defense is not great, not good. So this needs to be a Saquon heavy game. And again, I don't know what that means as far as after the game when they stick the mics in A.J. Brown's face and say, hey, so you had 2 catches for 50 yards. What does that mean for the offense? I don't know what that means, but I know looking at this game, this is a game I think it has to go Saquon heavy because, again, look, the Commanders are playing for something here. So they're going to come out and they're going to be playing. They don't have a playoff seed locked up. Like, they need to win this game. And so I think the Eagles' best way to win this game and stay kind of on pace for the 1 or the 2 seed is they gotta hand the ball off to Saquon. This needs to be a Saquon gets back on track to break the single season rushing record. And so we'll see if that, if they're able to do that, if they do that, and we'll see what that means as far as after the game, if, they have to answer those questions. But again, my fear is that this game, they try to lean heavy, not heavy, but they throw the ball more than I'd like. And we see Jalen throw a couple picks, and then it's a real problem because now you're going into the playoffs with what in the world are the Eagles going to do? So look, we're going to stay in the NFC East, man. We're going to move to the headlines of the week and start with the Cowboys, man. So look, Jerry Jones, love it. Jerry Jones grading out his coaching staff and, gave his coaching staff great grades. Mike McCarthy and their DC looks like they're in line for their contracts coming up this offseason. And look, I am hoping so. Nothing would make me happier as an Eagles fan than to see Mike McCarthy coming back. And the DC coming back. Zimmer? Is that who it is? I'd have to look it up. Anyways. And it's just, again, bringing Mike McCarthy and the DC back after they've been on lame duck deals all year and Jerry talking about how great they've been is just the most, again, it's the most Jerry Jones and Cowboys thing ever. You get the media circus all year about, Mike McCarthy, hot seat, hot seat. The defense looks bad. DC might be fired. He's on a lame duck deal. The Belichick stuff comes up. Dion stuff comes up. Vrabel stuff comes up. And it just, again, it keeps Dallas in the news, keeps the Cowboys in the news, keeps Jerry in the news. And Jerry's already told us that's what he wants. It's not about winning Super Bowls for Jerry. It's about staying in the news and staying relevant and keeping that brand up. And so, I fully expect now that McCarthy is going to get his deal done this offseason. They're going to bring back the DC. And we're going to get more just bad Cowboy football, which is, to me, just music to my ears, and I love it. And so, again, it's just, I can't put them on the level of the Jets, obviously, because the Jets is just an entire whole different stratosphere of an embarrassment of an organization. But man, the Cowboys, just the gift it keeps giving as far as you're going to get talking points from them. And you just, as again, somebody who's in the division. So as a podcaster, I love it because I'm going to be able to talk about them all the time. As an Eagles fan, I love it because they're just going to continue to do things that keep them in mediocrity. Because, and we've talked about it before, McCarthy, not a big head coach as far as like personality. So Jerry's going to be able to just, if they win, Jerry gets all the praise. If they lose, Jerry pushes it on McCarthy. And it's just a beautiful thing as an Eagles fan. Next, man, move over to Atlanta. And so, look, I called it, told y'all, Kirk Cousins, except this was in a win. I thought I thought they'd have to lose and be out of the playoff picture, but Kirk Cousins being benched for Penix, and it's tough, man. It's tough. Part of me is, they're still in it. They're still in the playoff picture. They can still get in. And do you want Penix thrusted into that? Because now you can't go back. And Kirk Cousins, you owe a massive chunk of money to. So, to me, it's, if you're the Falcons, best case scenario is Penix is great, but you still owe Kirk a bunch of money. And so your best situation is, I mean, granted, you got your quarterback, but now you're stuck with Kirk. I'm almost certain he's got a no trade clause, which means he can basically do exactly what Russell Wilson did in Denver, and basically say, yeah, no, I'm not going to be traded, and force their hand to either cut him or have the most toxic quarterback room in the league, and then he can go and sign just like Russ did. Go somewhere where they've got a ton of weapons, and he can sign for the minimum, and the Falcons have to pay the rest of it. So to me, so that's best case scenario if you're the Falcons, is Penix is great, but you still got to cut Kirk. You still got to pay his whole salary, and he goes anywhere he wants on a minimum, so you pay the rest of the contract for the year. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario is Penix goes in and he's terrible. Then what do you do this offseason? If I'm Kirk, I don't want to play for you guys anymore. You guys got to get rid of me. And now I don't know if Kirk is like that. If I'm his agent, though, that's what I'm telling him. Look, they benched you for this rookie. Now they want to bring you back. And look, I think Kirk still has good football left. I think, again, with the Achilles, it's just, typically they say with an injury, you have the recovery time, and however long the recovery time is, you have that same amount of time mentally before you're back to fully trusting it. And so I think Kirk, obviously he's getting older, but I still think he's got good football left in him. And so now if you're the Falcons, it's, you're kind of just stuck, because now you can't, if I'm Kirk, I'm not going back in to play for you. So you just got to hope Penix is good, and then, you suck it up and eat the salary and watch him go somewhere else and hope he's not good. So to me, he's going to be that. This is going to be something that I think is going to be a big thing in the offseason as far as whether Penix is good or not. The Kirk Cousins this offseason, I think, is going to be a huge story. And so, again, to me, that's why the upside just doesn't constitute the benching right now. Again, if you were out of the playoff picture, you could kind of justify it as, hey, Kirk, we're just going to shut you down for the year. We're going to see what Penix looks like. No sense in you being out there getting hurt when we wanted to bring you back next year, right? You can sell that to him. Right now, they're in the playoff hunt. That's not a sell to him. So, again, I think bad move by the Falcons. And again, I think it's going to be one of the most interesting kind of storylines moving into the rest of the year and the offseason is kind of what the Falcons and Kirk Cousins are going to look like. Next, man, we're going to move in NFL MVP. So, obviously, right now, it's looking like Josh Allen with a runaway MVP race. Obviously, you got people talking about Lamar and kind of just obviously because his numbers are great. Josh Allen's numbers really aren't that great this year. It's just he's kind of got – and look, it's why I picked him. I picked him preseason to win the MVP, and the reason was I was like, he's got to be Superman, which he's got to be Superman, and we're seeing that. I don't think he has to be Superman as much as I anticipated early. I think James Cook has been a great, running back this year. The switch up with Ty Johnson back there, he's been good as far as kind of a switch up back. They went out and got Amari Cooper, who when he's played, he's been good. And the defense, where I thought the defense was going to be really bad. And look, like I said, against great offensives, they struggle. But against if you don't have a great offense, the defense looks good. So to me, he hasn't had to be and Shakir's been great. Mac Hollins has been great. Like, to me, he hasn't had to be the superhero I thought he was going to have to be, but I think he's got that narrative rolling with him because that was kind of the narrative coming into the year and just where they're at. And then, he's got these plays that he's made, like the Chiefs, the run against the Chiefs, where people are like, oh my gosh, he's Superman. And so I think he's running away with it, even though Lamar's got the better numbers and Josh Allen's numbers aren't great. But here's what I'm gonna throw at you. And obviously, you got Saquon in there. I think if Saquon breaks the single season rushing record, which he's not on pace for anymore, it looks kind of out of reach. We'll see. But I think if he breaks that, he's in that conversation. But here's what I'm going to tell you. What if I told you there's a quarterback who is going to have 11 wins, win the division. He's going to be top 5 in yards, passing yards per game, touchdowns, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, and right now, 6th in passer rating. So top 5 or top 6 in every major quarterback category on an 11-win team that won their division. That's Baker Mayfield. Now, look, he's not going to win it because, like I said, I think the narrative is already set. I think Josh Allen is going to win this because we decided 2 weeks ago that he was going to win it. But look, Baker's got the numbers. If they win out, and look, Baker's numbers are probably going to get better because, like I said, Carolina, the Cowboys, and the Saints, numbers are probably going to get better, and he's going to have 11 wins. I know he's not the sexy pick. I know he doesn't have the narrative going for him. But look, if I would not be shocked if he showed up on some ballots. And look, again, no one looks at, especially since their injuries, like the Bucs have good weapons, but granted, Mike Evans is the best receiver, but the Bills' tight ends are incredible. Amari Cooper and Shakir probably get the second and third best receiver between the two teams. James Cook is a better running back. I'm just saying, man. Look, Baker Mayfield, if he ends top 5 in all those categories, might be top 4, top 3 in all those categories on 11-win team that wins the division. I'm just saying, possible MVP. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think he'll win it. I don't even think he'll get any first place votes because again, like, and we see this in the NBA. We've seen it before where, you know, we're 60% the way through the season, but we've decided who the MVP is because they have the narrative, they have the coverage around it, and it's just, the media is what it is. It once you get something rolling, it's a snowball. So unless Josh Allen absolutely just has some rough games, I could see Baker, and I could still see Jared Goff possibly. We'll see what he looks like these last couple games with how decimated that team is. I just think that Baker or Goff are interesting when it comes to this. So, but something to keep our eye on, man. And look, we're going to move away from the NFL for a minute, and we're going to talk NBA. So first off, man, we're going to talk about in-season tournament, the NBA Cup. Obviously, I was at the Thunder Rockets game. I got to watch that, and great game. Enjoyed it. Thunder obviously beating the Rockets. I was kind of rooting for the Rockets because I like Jalen Green, but also part of me loves seeing Ime Udoka and what's his name? I can't stand him so much I forgot his name. But seeing them lose also brings joy to my soul. So, but look, Bucks win. Look, I thought that game. I said it on the last podcast. I thought the game was going to be big for the Thunder, in a sense of, look, it's a kind of a championship environment, definitely a playoff environment. We've seen that, like the NBA teams, these guys take these games seriously. They want to win this. And look, $500,000 for everybody on the line. Like, yeah, like these dudes want to win. And so I think for me, I wanted to see the Thunder go out and win that because of that kind of environment. And you're playing a team and a guy who's won a championship. And so from just the game perspective, Bucks obviously win. Giannis, unstoppable. And part of me is glad that Giannis won. I think now that we've seen, you have LeBron win it last year, Giannis win it this year, I think it kind of solidifies the cup, right? Because you've got LeBron, in my opinion, the GOAT, arguably the GOAT, top 2, whatever, wherever you rank, whatever it is, all time great. You have Giannis, championships, championship, MVPs, final MVP, viewed as another guy who could arguably end up in that top 20 of all time. He wins one. And so I think it brings credibility to the cup that I think if the Thunder would have won, it wouldn't have been as much of a thing. And so I think the NBA Cup is kind of starting to become one of those things where it's I think because you have LeBron win, you have Giannis win, it's going to become kind of a legacy mover, especially moving forward for players who played while it was a thing. I think it is something where we'll look back and be like, okay, did he win an NBA Cup? And I think it will be kind of something we use to measure players against other players in this era, which is great because then it gives, again, I think, and we're going to talk about the ratings and NBA everything here in a minute, but I think that anytime you can get players to buy in that a game matters and games matter, like playoffs do, that, it brings just an extra level to those games. And So I think that because of who's won it these last 2 years, I think it does bring that credibility. And I think it is because of that, it's going to move into a place where it's like almost like if you're in this area, you're going to have to win at least an NBA Cup. And then how many did you win? And so um, that's my view of as far as the NBA Cup. The Bucks, look, the Bucks have been playing really well. Uh, Giannis getting back to kind of old Giannis. They made the move of bringing in the I can't remember his name, but the rookie from UConn, moved him into the starting lineup, gives them so much more athleticism and just wing defense. I think that was a great move for a team that is older and, outside of Giannis, not great defensively anymore. I know Lopez, he blocks some shots here and there, or he's a good rim protector, but as far as a defender, not what he was older. And so I think that move has been great. Dame is, he's finally finding his kind of way again. And, I just think the Bucks, to me, anytime you've got that generational player like a Giannis, you're always going to be in contention. And now that they've started rolling again, I still don't trust Doc Rivers, but it makes them contenders again. And they're looking like it, especially with a team beating a team like the Thunder, who, a lot of people are viewing as contenders and, this great team in the West. And that moves me to the Thunder. And I really like the Thunder. I really like Shea. I think they're constructed incredibly well. But it's also, that was very telling as far as why I can't put them as true contenders. Is I don't see, they don't have that guy. And Shea is great. Incredible talent, great offense player, but he's not that generational guy. And typically, granted, we've seen teams do it like, the Pistons, right? Where they don't have the generational guy, but it's just like a perfectly constructed team and they go out and win a championship. I can't see that happening. I think the Celtics are a better version of that. And so, like I guess you could say they, because Tatum's not really a generational talent. But again, it's just, to me, that NBA Cup game kind of reinforced how I felt about the Thunder as far as contenders in the West. And I just don't think they've got the guy that they can go to in, a game 7 or in a finals game where it's like, we got to win the game and we just need you to go out and win it for us. I don't think they have that guy, with all due respect to Shea. And lastly, for the NBA, man, look, I told you we're going to talk about it. Ratings down. Obviously, this has been a big talking point. And so here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that obviously a lot of people don't like the 3-pointers and everything. I'm going to caveat the whole thing with, I don't mind the amount of 3-pointers being shot. I think that the amount of 3-pointers, and look, this is when we talk about, and when I talk with people who are, big time 90s basketball guys who want to talk about, the skills, obviously the skill is so much more incredible now. And I like the amount of threes because when you spread out the offense, you get it really allows players to accentuate the skills that they have. And so I don't mind the amount of threes. I think if you wanted to cut them down, there are fixes for it. I'll go into that. But this is what I'm going to start with, man. I'm going to tell you guys why, no matter what fixes people come up with, it's not going to work. And so one is, look, as far as from the NBA, it's just like, it's to watch your team play and to watch really most teams play. It is ridiculously hard. If your team isn't playing on, TNT or ESPN for those, 2 nights a week that we get that, then you got to have League Pass. And so to have League Pass, obviously so I have League Pass, and I like basketball. Like, so I'm watching games that are out of, like, I'm watching all these games. But most people, if you're gonna get League Pass or whatever, it's because you got, I want to watch my team, I want to watch all their games. But you can't do that because, they're blacked out. So, like, for me, for instance, right, I like watching the Lakers, I like watching LeBron. Lakers game on NBA League Pass are blacked out for me. That is a 600-mile trip. I can't watch the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Kings. Sacramento that's an 8-hour drive. So it's just, the NBA makes it so hard for you to watch the NBA that I think that's one of the big reasons why you see ratings down, right? Secondly, I think that obviously with that comes, you have the illegal streaming. Now, most people I know who watch the NBA, they have their websites that they watch the illegal streaming on. Obviously, that does not show up in the ratings. And so now I'm going to explain to you guys why I think all these fixes, and look, I'll go into them. I think we talked about it, making dunks worth 3, I think would help the NBA as far as bringing more excitement and things to the game. I think, you could take away the corner 3 and make it a true arc where it arcs right into the sidelines. And that would then cut down the amount of threes because you don't have those corner threes that have become such a staple as far as in offenses now. And it forces people inside because, you really only have the top and the wings. So you can't put 5 guys there because it's too crowded. So I think that could be a fix. But here's why I'm going to tell you, whatever fix you think you have, it's not going to work. Because the biggest problem with the NBA and why the NBA's ratings are down, and look, I love the dynamic of Ernie, Shaq, Kenny, and Chuck. Love the dynamic. It's a fun show to watch. It's hilarious. Like, they're great. But they're also the biggest problem with basketball. And it's all y'all 90s and Jordan, all y'all fans. Not all. Most of y'all fans, you're the reason the NBA is where it's at. And this is why. Because no matter how much they fix the three-pointers, I mean, the three-point shot is, when ratings started declining, it wasn't this huge plethora of threes. You know what it was? It was LeBron James getting in the GOAT debate. And it was all these old players trying to preserve the legacy of Jordan. And in doing that, all they told everybody was how bad the NBA is now. Oh, they don't play defense. Oh, it's just, it's this. Oh, it's terrible. Like, the 90s was way better. Oh, it's this. When you put out a product and all it is all these players that everybody loved watching when they were growing up or when they were really interested in basketball, when all those players are talking about how bad the product is and how bad the NBA is and how it was so much better before, why would people watch? So I don't care what you do with the three-point line. I don't care what you do with any of that. The NBA's problem is the marketing around the NBA. It's that I've heard that all that matters is all these guys talk about, oh, it's just championship. MJ, 6 championships. That's all that matters. And so it's like, so players go, okay, well, like, then why should I play 82 games when I need to get ready for the playoffs because I need to win championships because that's the only thing I'm graded on. Then it's, oh, well, now these guys are load managing. So, oh, no, you never know if they're going to play. And so, again, it's just this constant narrative that's been spun by all these old guys, all the old basketball players and all the guys that are on TV now about how bad the NBA is. That's why we see these ratings down. Because, again, it's all the guys kids used to look up to and everything are telling you how bad it is, so why would I watch it? I can go watch the highlights. I can see who won on my phone. Like the regular season doesn't have an importance anymore, except when we're telling everybody how MJ played 82 games. And again, it's all in preservation of the Jordan fans and media saying, oh, well, Jordan's the GOAT because he played in this way better era, and LeBron's era is not as good. And that's why we see these ratings down. And so, look, lastly, we're going to finish up with the NFL. We're going to top 5, watch of the week. So we're getting here to the end. So, look, number 1, sticking with the Chiefs, man. Again, it looks like they're going to have to buy. Hollywood Brown's coming back this week, which could be huge for them. When you add in DeAndre Hopkins, who I think is going to get more snaps as we get into the playoffs, I got to go with the Chiefs. Number 2, Eagles. And it hurts me because I just don't know with this team. Like, they could explode and be right back in this just terrible place that they were at the end of the year last year, but they just look so dominant. They're the most dominant, like, problematic team I've ever seen. So Eagles are 2. Number 3, the Vikings, man. Look, Vikings, that defense, that I think they're great everywhere. I have questions around Sam Darnold. And so Vikings at 3. 4, the Bills. I think that defense, when you're playing really good offensives, which you're going to see in the playoffs, is a problem. So 4, I go with the Bills. And 5, look, and again, Lions would be in this top 5 if it wasn't for the injuries, but I can't believe in them with that many injuries. So 5, we're going with the Bucks, man. I think they've been playing great. Baker's playing great, and they got great weapons as far as with Evans, and great complementary weapons as far as Bucky in the backfield and Otten at the tight end spot. And the last man, watch of the week, going Lions Bears. I think this could just be a fun game because the Lions offense is still great. The Lions defense has got so many injuries that I'm hoping the Bears can and Caleb can throw it, and I'm hoping they let him air it out because the Lions defense is so banged up. And so, look, that's it for today, y'all. Again, episode 21, and appreciate y'all as always. Please follow us on Spotify, follow us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, like, comment, and I appreciate y'all as always, and we'll see you next time.